To the podcast, and they have Anthony Mackie on there, and he described about raising strong black men and the quote unquote attack on masculinity
in America.
Yeah.
So, I saw the full clip.
Go ahead. Since you jumped out there, go ahead and take it all the way. I'm gonna let you land the plane, though.
I mean, the only thing I can say is that, I think the main takeaway I get from, Mr. Mackie's comments is that, I understand his concerns about a very specific, I think what we don't discuss, but became apparent in the comments and the after discussion of his comments, because I understood where he was coming from. He was coming from a very, what I would have to honestly say, specific, disciplined view of masculinity. And what became apparent after this came out was that there are very disparate views and degrees of what masculinity is. The version he's talking about is very values based. In very basic common sense values of taking care of your mother when you're not there, being financially responsible, protecting women, respecting women, showing respect for your brothers, stuff like that. Stuff that he feels and experiences are not being reinforced in mainstream society, or reinforced in other institutions that his sons are a part of. So it's something that he feels he has to take a larger role in reinforcing in his sons' lives, because if he feels these particular values in masculinity, well, at least the version of masculinity he was displaying in that interview was not being reinforced in the overall society and around him. So he wanted to reinforce that with his sons, that you treat women this way, that you treat your brothers this way, that you treat society, that you hold yourself as a man in society this way, what right and wrong was, and things like that. But people definitely zeroed in on the comments about about American masculinity being rolled back and kind of automatically attributing a chauvinistic aspect to his comments.
That was the application anyway.
They're applying a chauvinistic context to his comments. So I mean, I saw the full clip, so I understood where he was coming from. But it became very apparent, and it's definitely, I don't know when it's ever going to be discussed, but different versions and degrees and shades of masculinity. Because clearly it's not one thing. I mean, and no one was saying that shit. Nobody was saying that shit. I'm like, I mean, I don't know how any rational father would disagree with Mr. Mackie's comments in reference to raising his sons in a basically good, honest way. I mean, I'm like, he wasn't talking about, I'm gonna raise my sons to punch cats in the face if they punch you. He wasn't saying some shit like that, or
woman has no voice or no place in their house.
Exactly, or tell his woman to stay home and cook and all that. No, he wasn't saying nothing like that. He was just saying, respect your mother. When I'm not there, be ready to step up for your mother. When I'm not there, be ready to step up. That's all. That was the main thing I was getting from that brother. Listen. And I'm like, that's what my dad told me. I mean,
listen we're all in Anthony Mackie's age range as well. So maybe I will be fair and say maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah. I think it's a 74, 75 baby, I think.
But before I jump in, go ahead, Crush. L, go ahead and take over, bro. What are your thoughts?
I'm telling you, I'm blown away. I am always blown away about
his
how
asses are flabbered, is what he's saying.
Yeah, like how all of these things turn into ammunition to use against each other in our sphere, in our diasporic point of view. Like, I don't get it.
Anthony Mackie,
if you ask me
to, by the way,
my guy, if you ask me right now to define masculinity, I couldn't do it. Like, I'm gonna keep it.
You know what? That might be some serious research for a big ass book.
I could not define.
That could be a big ass book, bro.
I don't know what words to use to describe it. I don't know what words to use to apply to. And not because I'm concerned about offending somebody. I just don't know what it is. I can tell you things that I've been taught, things that I've been shown, directions that I've been pushed. I can tell you some things that people might look at as, patriarchal or all these other terms that I can do that. But I am not in a position where I need to be able to define it for anybody else. Like because there's no perfect definition, there's no perfect man. I am blown away about how it turns into
Cheese
something that
bites.
he said or did wrong. Like he offered his perspective and his opinion on what, and again, he offered his perspective and his opinion on this particular thing. His, based off of his history, based off of what he's experienced and what he's viewed. And I don't think anybody's in a position to come out and say he's wrong or he shouldn't have did this or shouldn't have done that. People are going on podcasts and being asked questions, and people are answering the questions.
Asking
And
the questions that are being presented. Yep.
yeah, and the problem that I'm having is, we're victims or we're perpetuating this, is that then other podcasts pick up on it and they try to unpack it and they selling it, and then another podcast comes along and picks it up and tries to
My
unpack
thing is, he ain't said nothing wrong, because it seems like now you are masculine, you deem aggressive. It's a bad thing to stand on business, pretty much. If you ain't bending the way whatever a woman or wherever society wants you to bend, you a problem.
Like, what? Why is this even viral? I don't even understand. It's got over 25 million views on X alone, and of course it's going viral on other platforms, and people are calling him out and saying this is such a disgusting message to be teaching your children and your sons in particular, that there's no difference in the way that you raise the different sexes of kids, and that he's putting too much weight on his kids while also not buying them Jordans. I saw one tweet that said, wait, your kids are the men of the house, but they can't have a pair of Jordans. Oh my gosh. Internet brain rot is very much real.
Putting expectations on your kids is not evil or
I think
bad.
it's more ridiculous to expect your child to go to sleep one day as a child and wake up an adult, and
on
as
their
if it's
18th
like
birthday.
as if it just completely flips in the span of a minute. That
I mean, his wife should have a firearm and be trained in that firearm.
Well, that's true. I also hope he's making enough money that they live in an extremely secure, gated community.
I'm sure they do.
With security and everything like that, that his 15-year-old isn't solely responsible for defending the family home.
comes along and picks it up and tries to unpack it and sellies with that particular
Elgin might as well have just told us to get off this motherfucking show and turn the mics on.
Look, the topic. The topic is silly because it's clearly a distorted story. It's distorted. It's definitely completely distorted from what it was, and we can see it from a mile away at this point. There are better discussions going on around manhood and masculinity. At least there should be. I mean, that's what I think is definitely what the headline is really needs to say to us. And Elgin's right. To be in the position to even define it or attempt to define it would be a very extremely tall order. And maybe I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think the biggest problem is that the fact that folks are just willing. It seems, at least it comes across to me. Mm-hmm. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being a little bit hypersensitive about it. Mm-hmm. But I think that people are far too willing not to necessarily listen to comprehend, just to listen to talk or to listen to fight.
Right.
Because in all honesty, what he said, I don't know where you could have found the gripe with that. The lessons that he said he teaches his kids is the same lessons I teach both of my kids. I do put more emphasis on it with my son than I do with my daughter, but both of them get the same lesson. Yeah. When I'm not around, I need someone to hold things together. I need you to keep a level head. Mm-hmm. And all of these lessons that I'm teaching you, that I'm trying to impact on you, is not necessarily for this moment. It's for when you leave my home and you have to be a full functioning adult out in society. It's through that lesson that being able to stand packed and stand 10 tones down on what you believe in and what you love is going to help you protect your wife and children in the future. By being respectful to others, hopefully will garner respect back to you.
Absolutely.
By being willing to sacrifice yourself for your family, you're imparting these lessons on your children that they hopefully impart on their children, and hopefully bolster and keep your family together. So I don't understand what he said that was so inflammatory. I think what really, to be honest with you, like I said, it boils back to people hearing just to fight, not necessarily comprehend. Because I think where it was the destruction or the attack on masculinity in America.
Those terms, that phrase,
that's what it was. But none of the lessons that he said that he was teaching his kids, I don't see anything. Like literally, my son, before my wife and I started going to the range together, right? My son was the only other person that I had taken to the range and taken time to make sure he knew how to use a firearm. He's the only other person until my wife started getting more acclimated who knew what the code was to my gun safe. Because in the event that I am not home, I expect my son to fill in the role to protect and take care of his mother and sister. Like I said, I don't see the problem with that lesson. Maybe because L takes a different parenting style than I do. Maybe maybe not by too much of a deviation, but I know that you take a different parenting style than I do. Is there anything that you can see that could be wrong with what he said and how he's raising his kids?
No, I don't. Again,
and I asked you that specifically because you have girls as well, so maybe there's
and that's the thing. I don't think that he said or did anything that was something for people to nitpick over, to unpack. He didn't say that he was elevating a man over a woman because a woman is inadequate or lacks the ability to do. He wasn't saying that. He was literally saying that this is a cold ass world and that as a man, you are going to experience some things that is directly targeted towards you for you to be less than. And I don't want my son to be less than that. But that's the very thing that we want for our young boys, right?
And to be honest, and to the fathers in the room with daughters, if you hear another father describe his sons that way, doesn't that make you feel comfortable?
It makes me feel a different sort of way. It
makes you feel comfortable. You know what? Those are the kind of boys I would not mind hanging around my girls. I can actually say those are good young men. You can say that. You can actually say that out your mouth. How many times can you say that out your mouth about another? I'm getting to very sensitive areas, but the perspectives have to be taken into account there. And I think Mr. Mackie has all boys. I don't know if that's an important detail. I think he has two boys, and so and clearly, the way he raises his sons is something he takes very seriously, and he's probably encountered some situations in his life that he's like, you know what, I'm not letting this happen to them.
And he's not raising his sons alone.
No. Right? He has a completely intact family. He has a mother. The mother is there too. So there's a mother
involved here, right? So
women, I'm sure, aunts, cousins, nieces, grandmothers. I mean, they're it's all good. It's all good.
I don't get it, man. Like I said, I tell my son all the time that my number one job. And the only way at me as a father is going to know that I succeeded as a father is not until you go out into the world and you start using the tools that I've given you.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And if you're not able to,
I think that the thing that you hope that you've equipped your son with the most is the ability to build bonds, not enemies. If at the end you see your son, surrounded by allies and friends, and that turn into community, you've truly, mission accomplished right there.
My guy. And I you know what? And the thing, part of it is also like, as you rear your kids and you see the people that they hang around, you get an understanding on whether or not the direction you're leading your children in is working out, even before they become an adult.
Yeah.
Like I had a conversation with Elgin not too long ago. One of my son's friends, he got into a dispute with his brother and it became a big thing. and to the point it was physical between the friend and the friend's brother.
Yeah.
And my son was so emotionally shaken and angry by the fact that a family member would do that to another family member, and how they like just that whole interaction. He came back and he talked to me about it, and I was taken aback, not by the fact that he wanted to talk to me about it, but just kind of by
But he's
the fact that he was just-
exposed to that.
exactly, that he was not only just the exposure, but that he was just so shook, that shaken
Empathy.
in his exactly his
Empathy. He was showing empathy.
and his understanding of family.
He was shocked.
culture.
Yeah, he was shocked. He was like,
overwhelmed.
I would never do that.
Yeah, I was
That
overwhelmed by it.
he couldn't see
overwhelmed by it.
another family member and be like, I would never do that to you.
Yeah.
And mission accomplished, bro. And you know that's another thing that I think that scares me, being a potential parent, are the things that our children are exposed to they never tell us about, or the things they are indirectly exposed to that you don't think about, like I experienced in elementary school the death of a classmate by cancer. Right, to this day, my friend from that school, Daryl, we still talk about that kid.
Wow.
I had a friend who lost both his parents at like 12. My friend Chris Mickens, and I'm like, and I think I remember talking to my parents about that, and I think I remember they were just like, they were like, well, I'm sure his parents had things in place, but I can't remember the discussion we had, but I was like, I can't imagine losing you both now.
How do you?
And he turned out fine. He turned out fine. I mean, his parents did set him up.
I mean,
but
that's fine.
But
to
go through my teenage years without them, to go through my 20s and my 30s without them.
But that's what I'm saying. Fine is relative, and I think part of it also, like I said, establishing those rules and establishing an understanding of what's expected of you. One of the things that caught me off guard, and this is not to pat myself or my wife on the back or even to laud over my son, but we've tried to foster such a strong unit of family in the house, and we're not always successful. And it doesn't mean that we don't have our.
You can't be tight with everybody. Everyone's not going to click. Everyone's not going to click in the family. It is what it is. I know what that is.
But my wife asked my daughter who her best friend was, and she said her brother. I know when I was that age, my sister, my brother was not my best friend. And I know, in fairness to that, because I know I didn't have that relationship with my brothers and sisters when I was younger, I wanted to make sure that they had that type of relationship as they've been growing up.
Yeah.
But when she said it, and I was just like, I was floored. Like, this is your best friend. This is the person that you always want to talk to, that you share secrets with. Even now, I've taken that into consideration. Like, hey, if your sister's effing up, like, hey, you want to save your sister's life today, you better go talk to her and let her know. You know what I'm saying? And having that as a conduit, or having that relationship, I think is fostered by having expectations and beliefs that Anthony Mackie had. I don't think you can get around it any other way, but it is what it is. I don't know what masculinity looks like ultimately, because everyone has.
I mean, that's a tender word now.
I think that's fair to say.
Tender word.